Hey everybody, it's Dan with Adventure Today. Thanks for being here. Be sure to click that bell, subscribe, and share with your friends. Today we're doing a little bit of maintenance. It's time to do the famous fuel filter replacement on my 2017 Super Duty. I've got the Power Stroke diesel, so I get two fuel filters. I get this one that goes in the engine compartment, and I get this one, which is the water separator cartridge that goes back near the fuel tank, and I'll show you some tips on how to change this. It also comes with a gasket. I got quotes for these from the car dealership, and parts and labor just to do the fuel filters alone are $300, which is ridiculous. I've seen some people online, their dealerships are charging them $200, which is a little bit more reasonable, but still quite a bit of money. Because the vast majority of the cost is on labor, and I'm going to show you here in a few minutes that the labor really isn't that difficult. Don't be intimidated if you've never done a fuel filter before on a gas or a diesel vehicle. It's just not that tough, and Ford makes it super easy to do maintenance on the vehicles. In fact, even the owner's manual outlines how to do this procedure. If you've never changed the oil before on a Power Stroke, it could not be any easier. I mean, everything is right there and very simple to do. But when you go to buy filters, and I'm not sponsored by these people at all, but Diesel Filters Online is where I get mine from, because their prices are just absolutely fantastic. Great prices. So for my 6.7 liter Power Stroke diesel, for the fuel filters, we're talking $51.95. The air filter, which I have here, is $47.95 with shipping of $19.31. No tax, of course. It comes to a grand total of $119.21. Can you believe that my dealership was going to charge me $120 for this air filter? And I got it for less than half of that. So just crazy what these dealerships are charging for parts and so forth. So anyway, let's get at it. One suggestion that I have, if you try to do this quick little maintenance item of changing the fuel filters, is get another one of these replacement valves. This is a valve I'll show you here in a few seconds. It's at the bottom of your water separator, and it's held on by these two little tabs. There's one here on this side. There's one here on this side. As you can see, they're really small. They're very tiny. I've got another video about draining the water separator, which a lot of folks suggest you do maybe every 5,000 miles. Some people do it at every fill up. Some people do it every oil change. But these tabs can break pretty easily. I've already had a couple of these break. I broke one, or maybe I've broken twice actually, but the dealership actually broke one on me too the first time I had them do the fuel filters. And so they didn't even tell me about it. They just left it in there with one of these tabs broken, and I discovered it myself when my water separator was leaking. So anyway, have an extra one of these on hand. They're only like $3, and it's just a good little precaution. So anyway, let's get to the procedure. Okay guys, so the first thing you want to do is you want to drain the water separator. Now, as you can see, I'm down here on the ground. I'm on the driver's side of the vehicle. I'm about 6'7", so it's a little tough getting underneath here. But as you can see right here is that yellow drain valve right here. You've got my transfer cases right here. This is the exhaust system. Here's the fuel tank. Got the FX4 package, so we've got some protection underneath here, but you can see right where this is. It's really easy to find. So the first thing you want to do is drain this. There's about 20 ounces of diesel fuel inside this water separator. So we're just going to turn this valve. I haven't had this off in a while, but there it goes. All right, so mine didn't break this time. But here goes. Now this is going to take about 3 minutes to drain. I'm not going to make you sit through and watch this water drain for that long. But when it gets done, I will be right back, okay? Okay guys, so while this is draining, while this is draining, again, being 6'6" is not the most optimal for doing a procedure like this. But I'm trying to give you some light here on what I'm looking at. So Okay guys, so my fuel separator is starting to slow down. So we're getting near the end of that part, this step. I'm trying to give you some light here so I can show you, get my camera focused. So there's one other procedure if you have a 2017, and that is at the top of this filter. I'm trying to give you some light here so you can see this. So this is where it's draining. Okay guys, we are almost done here with the water separator draining. So we're getting right near the end. You can see here that we're actually getting, I don't know, about close to 64 ounces is draining out. So we'll let that go for a little while longer. I didn't think it was that much, but it's draining a little bit more here, but it's slowing down. Now up here, if you can see this, it's really tough because it's dark. There you go, that's not too bad. Sorry if it's a little bit out of focus, but you can get a feel, see if that'll help out. There we go, change the setting on my camera. So see that blue tab right there? All right, so that blue tab, the one at 12 o'clock and the one at 6 o'clock, you just wanna separate those a little bit and push that away. Now this is the incoming fuel line, and on 2017s and higher, you want to disconnect this line. I'm sorry, on 2017s, you want to disconnect this line. 2018s, you should be okay, but you can see this tab. If you can see this okay here, it's really hard. I only got 2 hands, but that lifts up. That lifts up. And and by lifting this up, this piece will push back. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the camera down real quick. Give me a second. All right, here we go. I got it. So now let's see if we can get this to be in focus. Okay, so now you can see those tabs are pushed back. So there's one at 6 o'clock and one at 12 o'clock. You just lift them a little bit and then they push back towards the rear of the truck. And then once that happens, you can then very easily just pull this line loose like that, okay? And then that is going to disconnect the fuel tank from the truck. Now, I've got a Model 3 or Job 3 truck, so this fuel line looks like it's not going to siphon the tank at all, but this is, I said that this line actually comes from the fuel tank. It doesn't. It actually comes from the front of the engine. And I think the idea with disconnecting this was so you don't siphon the fuel out of the motor into this tank. Now, this is the first time I've done this. I might have siphoned a little bit of the fuel out just based on when I disconnected this. We'll see. It's easily to reprime it. It's no big deal. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So anyway, the water separator is pretty much done. So I'm going to go get an 8mm socket, and there's about 5 screws underneath this filter, and we're going to take those off and remove this cartridge. I'll be back in a minute. All right, guys. So next step. So once we got that line disconnected up on top, then you want to come underneath and see the screw right here. You see that right there? There's 5 of those. And all you want to do is just loosen those up. And they actually connect the bottom of the filter cartridge. There's a plastic cartridge here from the top, which is not removable. It remains as part of the truck. Don't forget to disconnect this line right here. This is connected to a sensor, so you want to make sure you got that pulled. Anyway, and then the cartridge just comes right out, just like that. Might need 2 hands on this because it's in the way of my protection for my fuel tank. So I'm just going to wiggle this little plastic cover away, and it should pull right out. There we go. I only needed 1 hand. Okay. So I'm going to pull this up in the back of the truck, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Okay, so on my vehicle, if you can read this, probably going to be tough, but on December 21st of 2018, at 34,502 miles, so last time I had my dealership change the fuel filters on this, and So that was at 34,502. On my truck right now, I've got 62,204. So let's just round the numbers here. I've got 28,000 miles on this filter. Now let's have a little discussion about that. I had my truck to the dealership at 13,500 miles, probably for one of my bad door locks, and they told me that it was time for a fuel filter change. I'd never owned a diesel before. I said yes. Well, that is way too aggressive under most circumstances. So I educated myself after that, and learned that a lot of dealerships recommend 20,000 mile intervals of the fuel filters. The manual says, I think, 30,000 miles. I've gone 28 this time, which is probably a little bit longer than what I would like. And I've seen some of these water separators replaced, and most of the time it's at the 20,000 mile interval. And I'll tell you, mine looks pretty dirty, I would say. Compared to what I've seen online, I'd say this is generally pretty dirty. And so, but maybe not too bad, but it is a little bit longer than what I would think. So based on what I'm seeing here, I'm probably going to, keep to more of a 20,000 mile fuel filter change interval. So anyway, so this is the cartridge, and it literally has these tabs on it right here. And all you do to install this or remove it is you put it in and you slide it over, just like that. That's it. And it's pretty easy. So I am going to set this to the side. There's always going to be a little bit of fuel down here in the bottom. I'm going to pour this into my bucket, properly dispose of this, and then I'm going to install the new cartridge, which again just slides right on. It's a very, very simple process. You can't get it wrong because it only goes in one way. But this is the new cartridge. It's going to pop in here and just slide over a little bit. The next thing that you need to do, and I'm not going to spend much time on this, is there's a gasket in here that you can see. That gasket needs to be replaced with the new gasket that you get with the fuel filters right here. You don't have to prime this like you do with a gasket on a oil filter. You just install it in place and reattach the assembly. Once I get that done, I'm not going to spend time showing you how to do that because it's the reverse of what I just did. I'm going to get to a priming step that I will come to in just a few minutes before we go to the front filter in the engine. As I learn tips along the way, I want to share these with you. So I just replaced the gasket on here, and you may want to spend a few extra minutes when you just push this gasket back down. I initially had it down and I noticed there were a couple of high spots on the gasket, and you just need to make sure that's really snug. This is probably a great way to get some leaks if you don't have this gasket seated correctly inside this plastic carrier. The other thing I wanted to share with you was, remember in the bottom, this sensor that I suggested that you had to unplug, or mentioned you had to unplug? That goes to this sensor right here, and this is probably where the water separator cartridge tries to keep the oil, is down here, so that when you drain the yellow valve, that opens up right there in that yellow spot that you can see. And that's where the water comes out. And so this water separator cartridge lets the pure diesel fuel work its way up to the filter before it enters the engine and separates the water and drops it into the bottom of this cartridge. And if this gets full, then this sensor right here is going to trigger a warning on your dash that you need to drain your water separator. So if you end up going to a gas station and fill up with diesel and it's some bad fuel, then you're going to have some water in it. The sensor is going to trigger, stop the truck immediately, jump out, and drain the fuel. Try to capture it if you can. But if you let water get into your motor, it's about a $10,000 job. So this is a very a good warning to heed, and just stop the vehicle immediately and drain it. Because as you can see, I mean, this sensor barely, it doesn't even come up to the first knuckle on my finger. I mean, it is not that deep. It doesn't hold that much water. And although from what I understand, it holds a lot more than prior power stroke motors do. But heed the warning, pull over right away, drain it, and you probably have a bad tank of fuel. So that might save you $10,000 down the road. Okay, I'm going to put it back together. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my filter water separator cartridge installed. I've got the fuel line reattached, and I've got the electrical sensor for the water separator reattached. Just an FYI, there's some videos online, guys are using power tools to remove those screws on that water separator. And just as a suggestion, I'm not saying they're doing it wrong, but I would use a hand tool. You know, you just don't want to strip out one of those screws or do something to cause any damage with a power tool. It's just 5 screws. It doesn't take that much longer, and you can really be careful about how much torque you're applying. Now, okay, so now think about what's going on here. We just drained about 64 ounces of fuel out of the fuel system, and now that water separator is completely empty, and we need to reprime that. Now, I have not changed the filter in the engine yet. I'm going to do that in just a second. Now, that's at the top, so I'm not so much worried about priming once I change that filter, but I will still do it once or twice. But here's how you do it. Now, I've got push button start on my Lariat, so I've got the key sitting inside the truck, and you don't want to put your foot on the brake because that will start the motor when you push the button or you turn your key to the accessory mode. If you've got a XL or an XLT, you don't have push button start, you just want to turn your key to the accessory mode. But we need to reprime these filters right now. So again, with push button start or with the key, do not touch the brake. You do not want to start the engine now. It won't start, and you don't want to cause any damage. So do not touch the brake. It's best to stand outside the vehicle like I'm doing so you don't accidentally hit the brake, and then you just touch the button or you put the truck in accessory mode. Now, if you can hear, might be a little tough to hear this. Okay, that is fuel filling up all those air gaps in the fuel system. Now, it just cycled one time. I'm going to do this about 6 or 7 times. I'm not going to make you sit through all of this, but I just pushed the button again, which actually turns the truck back off. And now I'm going to come in here, I'm going to push the button again, and we're going to start this process all over again. Okay, everybody, that literally took 7 full cycles before I quit hearing the gurgling sound, and it went from a gurgling sound to just almost like small little bursts of air. Is probably the easiest way to describe it. And but when I did it that 7th time, I didn't hear anything, and so I know that the system now is fully primed. Okay, so the last step, and this is actually the easiest one, but possibly for some people it could be a little more intimidating. Number one, I'm a pretty big guy, and it is tough to reach in here. I mean, I'm on my tippy toes right now, and I can reach in. So these are the 3 lines. This filter is quite a ways away, and these trucks sit high off the ground, even if they're stocked like my truck is. I don't have a lift kit on this, and it's still pretty tough to reach to. But anyway, you've got 3 lines that are attached to this fuel filter, and they're all attached with a different kind of clip on purpose so that you can't cross these lines at all. I think it's a little bit of an overkill in how they design these. Not a bad safety reason, but these hoses probably aren't that difficult to get confused anyway. But Ford's just not taking any chances here, especially like I say with the $10,000 fuel system. So each one of these detaches a little bit differently. We're going to start on the right. So with this one, you can one-hand it. You just squeeze those 2 red tabs in like this. Just squeeze them in and push down at the same time, and that tab will pull down. So that's one. Pretty easy. The blue ones, there's a blue tab here and a blue tab down here near about 4 o'clock or so, maybe 5 o'clock. Those you pull towards the left front corner of the truck, and you push towards the front bumper. Again, maybe I can't get this. Oh, yep, there you go. I got it with one hand. So you pull those blue tabs. There's one here at about 2 o'clock and one at maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. You pull them towards you or towards the battery over here, okay? And then while you do that, you push towards the front bumper and it will pull that one out. The last one is one here on the left, is a red one, and this one you just lift up on it. It's pretty simple, but you just lift that one up. It goes down and lifts up. So that one is probably the easiest of all three. So, and then these just pull right out. So here's the first one. I put a little rag underneath here just to kind of make, I'm sure there's some fuel that's going to spill out. Again, this is the first time I've ever done this procedure. And so, yeah, we got a little bit of fuel that's popping out here. So you just want to be careful about that. Again, see how stiff these hoses are? I mean, you really can't reposition these in any way, shape, or form because they are pretty stiff. I mean, this is a high pressure fuel system. So anyway, so let's get this last one out. Okay, there's the last one out. Now you can see the filter's already moving. So you just turn this a little bit and it will lift right on out. Now, remember, there's fuel in here, so I'm going to tip these up. Probably going to spill a little bit. That's okay. All right, we're going to pull this back here. I'm going to stick this on the back of my truck. Got some rags back here. I'll clean that up a little bit later. Grab the new filter. Now, the new one comes with a plastic cap on the middle. Okay, I've got that cap pulled off. And we will just set this right back in place. Now, I have to wiggle this a little bit to get this to, there you go, it just fell right in. So those intakes or those connections are aimed, pretty much at the back part of the wheel, back part of the tire, and then you just turn this in place. That's it. It will not lift out. It is secure in there. That filter's not going anywhere. All right, so now we can just reattach each one of the lines, and then the red line goes in and snap it down. So double check, make sure everything is good, make sure everything is secure. That looks pretty good. I don't think that's going anywhere. It's in its cradle. I think we're all set. Okay, so now you got that set up. What you want to do, you're going to come back to the truck and you're going to do that cycling all over again, where you push the start button, and now we're going to sit here and listen. We're going to make sure that this engine is primed up. Now, not too much fuel spilled out when my hands are a little bit, got a little bit of diesel fuel on my fingers here. Not too much fuel spilled out, but a little bit did. So I'm still going to prime this a couple times. I don't hear anything coming out of the water separator in the back. Just making sure it doesn't hurt to be safe and sorry. Get my fingers cleaned off. Everything looks good up here. I'm going to come back when I get done and wipe any excess fuel down with some cleaner. Now, let's see if we can't get this thing to start. And there it goes. Gotta prime it, guys. Do not forget to prime it. It's the key. There's some videos on YouTube with guys starting their truck and they didn't prime their engines correctly. And do not want to do that. You don't want to starve the fuel pump. You don't want to starve the fuel injectors. It can cause some problems for you. So anyway, that's it. Pretty easy. So sorry, that was a little bit shaky, a little bit out of order maybe. But first time doing this, I learned a lot, and I'm so happy that I got this done. Saved a lot of money, saved a lot of time. This whole job, if I wasn't videotaping this, would probably take me about 20 minutes the next time I do it, because I know what I'm doing now. Hopefully this video helps some people out there. Save some money, do it yourself. Don't waste time and money at the dealerships. A project like this is really easy. Don't be afraid to change the fuel filters. For those who've never done it before, I've never done it before. This is my very first day doing it, and it's not that tough. All right, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing. Share with your friends, and we'll see you soon, okay? Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.